Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a truly profound source text known as the Demetrian Codices. And look, we aren't going to treat this as some dry, dusty academic exercise. Instead, we're looking at this through the lens of an earthy, spiritual map. It's essentially a guide designed for a multi-ethnic wayfarer, a traveler seeking to completely decouple from oppressive human-made ledgers to reclaim their indigenous spiritual sovereignty.
So let's dive into the foundational question here. What if the universe actually operates on a hidden system of spiritual symmetry? The text proposes that by mirroring or flipping alphanumeric coordinates, we can expose the stark differences between artificial, gate-kept religious systems and true, untamed liberation. It's kind of like looking at the pristine face of a watch to tell the time without getting tangled up in all the heavy brass gears of institutional dogma.
Section 1. The Architecture of Spiritual Symmetry. Navigating the 16.9 and 9.16 coordinates. To start, coordinate 16.9 represents our planned path. Imagine you're a traveler standing in a vast, fog-shrouded valley, holding a map drawn entirely by your own desires. But the sovereign, operating from a much higher vantage point, gently shifts your footing by just a few degrees to preserve you. But then we have the inverse mirror, coordinate 9.16. This is the counterfeit. It offers this incredibly seductive shortcut, a house illuminated by an artificial, flickering warmth, practically calling out to the weary traveler who feels exposed out there in the wilderness. What's really fascinating here is how the text highlights this counterfeit voice calling from the shadows. It specifically targets the exhausted traveler, directly appealing to our very human desire for autonomy and control, completely devoid of any divine direction. Basically, it promises an easy way out of the fog, an escape from the incredibly hard work of spiritual alignment. And this builds into a seamless descent, exactly as it's mapped out in Proverbs 7. It starts off simply enough with refusing divine correction, and then leaning into that counterfeit voice. Before long, the traveler steps right into the stranger's territory. This path is littered with strong men, because human strength and brittle pride, when they're unanchored by the sovereign, lead directly down into a hollow tomb. It's a powerful metaphor for just how quickly we can lose our footing when we start trusting artificial structures over the raw guiding wind of the Creator.
Moving on to Section 2, Decoupling from Artificial Debt, the 9.15 resonance and 15.9 year of release.
Okay, so here is how this works. The heavenly decree of 915 acts as a consuming fire. It literally vaporizes old debts, all the wood and stubble of false obligations, leaving behind only pure, clean soil and uncompromised soul equity. But when that heavenly frequency hits the earth, it manifests as 15.9, the year of release, or the Shemitah. It legally wipes out the heavy human-made traditions and external liabilities piled onto marginalized people by religious gatekeepers. It is an absolute decolonial shift that severs the roots of institutional oppression.
Section 3. The Frequency of Life, the 9.9 Convergence, and the Red Clay.
So, what happens when a coordinate is a perfect mirror of itself? Well, 9.9 doesn't even need to flip. It is absolute convergence, the exact point where heavenly majesty meets earthly dust face to face. If we look at Zechariah 9.9 using Hebrew gematria, we see exactly how this mathematical beauty works. The first word, melech, or king, reduces down to a 9, representing finalized authority. The second word, venosha, meaning wrapped in salvation, also reduces to a 9. Combine them, and you get 18. And in the alphanumeric system, 18 is the sacred frequency of chai, the Hebrew word for life.
Now, how does this life actually arrive? The text is super explicit here. It absolutely does not arrive on a towering warhorse of human empire or colonialism. No, it rides upon a chamor. While that's commonly translated as donkey, its deeper, truer root meaning is red clay or the physical mass. This is such a profound nod to indigenous spirituality. It shows that true spiritual mastery doesn't destroy the earth. Instead, it tames our heavy animal nature and grounds us deeply and peacefully into the raw red clay of our existence.
Which brings us to Section 4, the silent spiritual hunt, Aramaic slotha versus religious performance.
Let's look at how the codices argue the Messiah actually communicated with the divine. By completely bypassing formal institutional Hebrew for Aramaic, which is the breathing, earth-hewn language of the common soil, we see a massive shift. Tefillah represents this outward, rhythmic performance, a loud pleading meant specifically for the eyes and ears of human judges. But slotha, which is the actual Aramaic word the text highlights, represents something entirely different. It's a completely inward, motionless spiritual attunement.
The Aramaic root of slatha literally means to set a trap, to bend, or to stretch out a net. I mean, you don't catch the wind by screaming at it, right? The source text brilliantly compares true slatha to a wolf in a moonlit forest. You don't run through the trees howling to announce your hunger. You haunch low to the earth. You completely drop the heavy baggage of religious performance, and you wait in absolute predatory silence to capture the whisper of the Father moving through the wilderness. It's all about listening, not performing.
Finally, Section 5. Escaping the Roman ledger, the juridical shift from Abba to Father.
This perfectly illustrates the trap of translation, which the text argues is actually a massive shift in legal jurisdiction. The Aramaic Abba designates you as an inseparable bloodline heir, made of the exact same substance as your source. In that framework, you are spiritually decoupled from external control. But when that gets translated into the Greek pater, or the Western father, you unknowingly enter the Roman civil court under patria potestas. Suddenly, you aren't an inseparable heir anymore. You are household property, just an asset to be managed, securely shackled by ledgers of debt and institutional control.
And you know, this is exactly why the foundational texts contain a built-in bilingual safeguard. Verses like Galatians 4:6 don't just say Father, they specifically say Abba, Father. The text explains that this acknowledges the courtly, legal language of the world, the Roman pater, but then immediately anchors it immovably to the sovereign, untamed bloodline of Abba. It essentially ensures the wayfarer cannot be legally reshackled by the ledgers of human religion. The indigenous root always overrules the imperial translation.
So, we've seen how this inverse coordinate system just totally strips away the noise. It burns up the debt ledgers, it tames the red clay, and it completely bypasses institutional gatekeepers. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought based on our explainer today. What will it actually take for you to discard that heavy baggage of performance? Are you ready to crouch low, decouple from the artificial ledgers of the world, and listen in the silence for the distant, answering howl of your Creator?